Coffee is a significant source of income to over 1,700,000 smallholder coffee farmers in Uganda. The average harvest per year of 700 kilograms per hectare is far below the potential harvest of 3.5 tons per hectare. This low productivity is partly caused by the low adoption of good agricultural practices and the effects of climate change. In response to this, IITA collaborated with private sector partners to develop Stepwise, a tool to establish climate-smart investment pathways. The Stepwise approach is intended to help farmers cope with the effects of climate change and promote the adoption of good agricultural practices.
IITA is part of a consortium that works on climate-smart coffee. And within that consortium, you had people working at the global level and people working more at the, I would say, implementation level, working with farmers. And so IITA was at that level. And what we realized was when we were talking about climate change, often we talk about impact that's going to happen by 2050 or, 2100. And so what we realized was that when we wanted to really implement climate-smart coffee, we were talking to people that had a much shorter time frame in terms of what they needed to achieve and their objectives in their work. An extensionist, for example, that works for a certain coffee exporter is not really interested in what's going to happen in 2050. He's being rewarded and he's doing a good job if he actually gets his coffee for the next season. So what IITA tried to do is to take the concepts of climate-smart coffee and climate-smart agriculture into programs and things that were happening now with people working with farmers. And that is Stepwise.
For Luero, Step 1 practices are cultural weed control and desuckering. Planting of shade trees is recommended as a measure for climate change adaptation and mitigation. In this step, the coffee bushes appear to have fewer berries on the fruiting nodes, pale green to yellowing leaves, and high black coffee twig borer infestation. The black coffee twig borer is the most dominant pest in the central region of Uganda, while coffee wilt disease is the most dominant coffee disease. Step 2 combines practices from Step 1 with application of organic manure, soil water conservation structures such as trenches, and the cultural control of pests and diseases. As a result of these practices, the coffee bushes appear to have more berries on the fruiting nodes, pale green leaves, and a moderate number of leaves on the primary branches. Step 2 also has minimal black coffee twig borer infestation when compared to the bushes in Step 1. Step 3 adds mulching and canopy tree shade management to the combined practices of Step 1 and Step 2. As a result, the coffee bushes have high fruit loads, which cause the stems to bend over. To keep the beans off the ground, the stems are held up through a process called staking. Visually, the coffee bushes are healthier than those in Step 1 and Step 2. The last step is a combination of Step 1, Step 2, Step 3, and new practices. On top of the earlier described practices, Step 4 includes chemical weed and pest control, desilting of water conservation structures, and mineral fertilizer application. As a result, coffee bushes are healthier than those in the previous steps. Apart from these, there are practices not restricted to any particular step. An example is gap filling. Gap filling happens throughout the plantation lifespan. However, due to erratic rainfall, establishing young coffee plants is a big challenge. Newly planted coffee is sensitive to water stress and survival rates under drought conditions are minimal. It is important to have nearby sources of water for bottle irrigation and watering young coffee. Farmers are advised to construct groundwater harvesting structures or tanks to harvest and trap water runoff whenever it rains.
Farmers learn much better once there's somewhere they can go and see the practices. And once they see the practices physically, and they also touch, you know. Of course, with the stepwise demos, we have been doing all this together with them, with the farmers.
Step zino tukyabitandika kati kuno omwaka gwakubiri kubanga bagitandika mu kiseera nga kyakasana naye twatandikirawo okulaba improvement oba katugambe enkyukakyuka era enkyukakyuka eyeze nga tugattako nti batutwala emisomo egiwera netusoma kibaagala tukole okusobola okulwanyisa embeera y'obudde tusobole okubaza emmwanyi eziwera era kati tutandise okiraba nti steps zino buli step esingako ginaayo okusinziira ku kyotaddemu kati kiri eriffe okulaba kiki tusobola okukola tusobole okubaza emmwanyi ennyingi.
In the long run, the stepwise approach is expected to improve the adoption rate of good agricultural practices and introduce climate-smart agriculture. This is by breaking down the investment burden into smaller, more manageable sets of practices, incrementally increasing until a full suite of practices can be applied. Ultimately, the purpose of the stepwise approach is to increase the yields of the smallholder coffee farmer